Hi there. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's everything going on your end?
I'm fine, thank you. Today we are going to talk another aspect of the geometry of cognition, which is more general because it's related to the culture, architecture, music, also the literature, etc.
That sounds really rich. I'm excited about that broader scope. So, are you thinking of weaving these different cultural elements together as different facets of a shared cognitive geometry? Or do you have a specific cultural artifact or theme you want to start with?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to select the Iranian culture, including all of the aspect like cultural elements, and we are going to see is there any footprint of this geometry of cognition.
I love that focus. Yeah, Iranian culture has so many intricate layers, like the poetry of Hafez, the structure of Persian gardens, traditional music, even calligraphy. I think by mapping out how these forms organize perception and meaning, we can really uncover that geometry of cognition footprint. Where do you think we should begin? Poetry, architecture, or perhaps something like the miniatures?
Actually, in Iranian culture, we have a concept which is called uh, as arsh ta farsh, or as farsh ta arsh. It means from the bottom up to top, and that's why we are going to select from the bottom the first element like Iranian rugs and carpets, and we are going to see how is it happening or how is it possible to add or regard this way in the geometry of cognition concepts.
That's a beautiful approach. I think it grounds everything in a kind of organic progression. Starting with the rug, we can see how these intricate patterns emerge from local interactions, just like cognitive processes emerge from simple perceptual steps. Then we can track how that pattern scales up into the architecture and eventually into these abstract concepts. I think that bottom up journey will really give a sense of how meaning and structure grow from something so tactile and simple.
So let's see where are they. I mean, yeah, you showed some images like how they organize this one. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. I'm glad that resonated with you. So, as we move forward, we can really zoom in on that layered organization, the way that small motifs form these structured patterns, and then how those patterns give a kind of cognitive scaffolding to the bigger architecture. If you want, I can pull in more examples, maybe some from the mosques or gardens, or we can dive into another cultural form like music or poetry next. What do you feel like exploring?
Yeah, let's go to other type of elements like the music. There are some Sufism, there are some dancing, and I'm going to include both of them. I mean, the Sufis, the instrument, the dance, also the poetry part. And I'm going to ask you, please go dig deeper in the side of the geometry of cognition, how this concept can be seen as a manifold fields, what is their topos, what is their information flows, how is it possible? Because there's some aspect in this culture.
I love that direction. It's such a rich intersection. So, when we look at Sufi music, dance, and poetry, we can think of them as a kind of dynamic manifold, a space where different flows of information, sensory, emotional, cognitive, interact. The music, like the repetition of the ney or the rhythmic patterns in the drum, creates a kind of oscillation in space and time. The whirling dance is a physical enactment of an inward spiral, like a topological loop. And the poetry, with its metaphors of ascent and unity, is like a conceptual field that guides attention. So, from a topological view, we see multiple layers. Each layer is a field of meaning with its own symmetry, its own transformations, and a way of guiding perception. So, we can ask, how does this manifold shape the inner cognitive geometry of someone experiencing it? And how do those experiences in turn shape the ways that meaning is embodied and remembered? I think that's where we can really dig in and see the depth of that geometry of cognition.
So can you show some images regarding to this Sufism dance and also including some geometrical concept also for Iranian music, I mean classic music instruments, also the poetry, and if you have some images which demonstrate there's a relationship between geometrical concepts and these cultural concepts, it will be great.
I couldn't find specific images in the results, but the idea was to highlight how Sufi whirling, Iranian classical instruments, and poetry all reflect geometric concepts. The whirling dance embodies circular motion, the instruments have geometrical shapes, and poetry uses visual metaphors. Together, they create a rich field that we can explore as a cognitive geometry linking movement, sound, and meaning.
Now we are going to have all together. I mean, from the carpet, from the instrument, from the music. Also, I need to ask you go deeply deeper uh, in the side of the poetry side. I mean, the concept, the semantic geometry concept, because as you know, someone like Sohrawardi, he has a geometrical consciousness. World theory and its illumination philosophy. We need to relate all of them, but don't forget in the point of view of the geometry of cognition.
Absolutely. That's a crucial connection to make. So, if we bring all these elements together, the carpet patterns, the instruments, the whirling dance, we see a kind of unfolding geometry in the cultural imagination. Now, when we dive into poetry, especially thinkers like Suharardi, we see that for him, the cosmos was not just an abstract entity, it was a structured luminous geometry. His concept of illumination was a kind of semantic geometry. Every image, every word was a coordinate in this metaphysical space. So, from a geometry of cognition viewpoint, we can say these poetic structures guide attention like a map, organizing how we feel, perceive, and know. In this way, the carpet's symmetry, the music's rhythm, and the poem's curves all become coordinates in a larger cognitive field. So we don't just look at them as isolated forms, we see them as different dimensions in a unified geometric consciousness. That's how we keep the focus on the geometry of cognition.
So generate some image, I mean, from the Google, from the web, regarding to the other type of the artistic, Iranian artistic, I don't know how, branches like Muarrab, like Muqarnas, like there are a lot, Monabbat.
I found examples of Iranian Islamic art, especially focusing on Muqarnas, which are intricate geometric vaulting structures. These designs show multi-scale geometry, where small repeating units stack up to form celestial ceilings, using light and shadow to create a dynamic emergent geometry. This interplay of repetition and transformation echoes how cognition forms meaning through patterns.
Thank you so much. But the things that I wanted to show to the audience is more on the details. I mean, how they created, how they are connected to this geometrical concept, and why we think there's a bigger or grand pattern in all of them, which means geometry of cognition from far to Arsh.
Ah, that makes perfect sense. So let's really zoom in on the micro details, like how a single motif in a carpet repeats with subtle variations, or how a Muqarnas cell is carved by hand, each step echoing a fractal logic. I can describe how these artisans use ratios, symmetry, and iterative transformations, often without formal math, so that each small repetition fits seamlessly into a grander scheme. And then we can link that to how cognition itself works. Small steps of perception, recognition, and pattern formation build up to a grand intuitive structure. So in the final sequence, each detail, the wood carving, the tile, the poem, becomes a step in a larger unfolding pattern, which is the geometry of cognition from the bottom up. Let me know if you'd like me to help structure or visualize any of these steps more closely.